Those clips were all from my entry into Minijam 189 Cooking. This video itself is going to be a bit of a rambly tour of the project, and we'll show off some of the hacks that went into it. If that's your thing, enjoy. Hey, so I thought it would be kind of fun to just do a little demonstration walkthrough, playthrough of my entry for the last Minijam, Minijam 189. Thought it was a fun entry, and I haven't jammed in a very long time, so, thought it would be cool. Also, have not made a game jam game in Godot before, so it was a very interesting experience. Have mostly done Unity before this. But, yeah, let's get into it. So, first off, I'm just gonna play through the third level, which is the most difficult one. How the difficulty works is that each easy, medium, rare, or easy, medium, hard, essentially, adds more attacks that the enemy can choose from, and it incorporates the attacks from the previous difficulties as well. So, this one is a longer combo. And if you parry everything in a sequence, you get a riposte kind of thing. Very Expedition 33. This is like very inspired to the point of it is just the same mechanics. Because I very much enjoyed that game. It was very good. So you have two options in combat: basic attack and risky slash. Risky slash is you deal double damage and take double damage. Your damage is displayed in the top right, sort of. Your health, I mean. So your target time is that green 20 seconds, and the burn time, or when you lose, is 1 minute and 20 seconds. The current time is in the pan, 55 seconds. It's just like a tug-of-war health bar. When you deal damage, that time goes down, and when you take damage, that time goes up. So risky slash, you can see it deals a lot of damage. Oh, okay. Well, I got the same attack twice in a row. It's supposedly random, but as all random number generators seem to just troll you. Let's just do a basic attack so I don't win too fast. Oh, this one's actually kind of hard. I might get beat up here. Yeah, okay, whoops. So you can see I took damage, and that time went way up. Also, you may notice in the background, since we selected steak, there's a giant floating steak-adjacent model in the background. I am not a 3D artist, but each of the levels does have their corresponding food type as part of the background. I didn't have time to do fancy effects for the hit and V-hit animations. Wow, okay. So we didn't see very many attacks there. There are... Oh, I should move this mouse. There are actually a couple more. Like this one. Good. Haven't seen this one yet. If you've played Shadow of the Erdtree DLC recently, you might recognize this animation, since I directly use Rolana's double slash for this. Just went frame by frame, and tried to replicate the poses. As you'll see later, the rig setups for this enemy, they're very bad. So it took quite a long time to animate all of this. It was actually probably the majority of this jam time. Okay, cool, got this one again. Ends up being very easy just because it's so slow. But if you do get hit, you do get hit twice because there's two swords. I really like how this one looks. It's kind of fun to parry too. Oops, that was so early. I just tapped that completely on accident. So will I lose? Let's see. Oh my gosh. Early every time. Well, I guess it's a good chance to see all the attacks. and to listen to the legally distinct Expedition 33 battle music. The first measure is like almost identical to one of the battle tracks. I don't remember what it's called. But the rest of it is very thrown together. I wrote this in probably an hour. That's why the drum track is identical throughout. For the shitty game? Yeah, okay. Got little stats in the bottom. Got hit 5 times. Parried 18 times. You'll notice the music also just cuts out there. I was going to add a crossfade like into the menu music, and then there was no menu music, so it just stops. I put in a very simple tutorial with the face of my cat instructing you how the game works. Which, by the way, the whole premise of this thing I thought was kind of cool. I don't know if other people thought so as well. But you're making lunch, you fall asleep, and you're trying to fight your subconscious in order to wake up in time before your food burns. Which is the whole time is the enemy interpretation of the limitation. But this is the battle scene. This is where literally everything happens. There's no separate battle scene per food. You can see they're just all right here, and they're toggled on and off depending on which difficulty you select. You've got cameras for each of the different angles, since you have angles for like your riposte and your attack and the enemy attack, and it just kind of enables and disables the correct camera. Probably could have done something fancier there, but you know, jam game. This was made in 2 days. But I will show off the animations, since that is the most time-consuming part of this for sure. You can see the rig here is very, very basic. There is no IK going on. This entire thing was animated bone by bone, frame by frame. Well, not frame by frame, but you know, it does a lot of tweeting. But this is the like time flies attack, for example. This was probably the easiest one to animate because I'm just spitting this guy. And you'll notice his head is not here. That is just using a bone constraint in Godot, since I didn't model that until probably the last hour before I submitted. But you've got all of his attack animations. And from this, you can probably tell I am not an animator at all, or a 3D modeler. This is as basic as it gets. But I was pretty happy with how these swords turned out, since they ended up being they're using constraints in Blender to show off like where they would be attached. And I'll show you in the editor how I ended up getting the Godot objects to function in the same way, since it was not quite as straightforward as in Blender, but it was pretty easy. Let me open the player. As you can see, I use a lot of incremental saves just because I was very scared of my computer blowing up. It's been randomly crashing recently, so the player doesn't have very many animations either. A basic attack, so it's just the swipe. The deflect left and right is just... Here, I'll do this so my keyboard doesn't clack super loud. There's like barely anything at the beginning because you want that to happen very quickly. Hurt is obviously just a little turn. It's very simple. I don't know what parry was doing here, to be honest. I think that was before I did the deflects. And the riposte is just the deflect plus the attack. It's just glued together. Nothing fancy. But as to how these worked in Editor, let me show you. So you can see these two hitboxes right here are what the enemy uses for hit detection. The hands are just duplicated meshes from the import, since when they imported, you can't actually move these objects since they're part of the like imported base scene or whatever. So I had to end up duplicating them and using this bone attachment for each of them attached to the hands. And of course the rotation is different than it is in Blender, so they had to be rotated for them to appear straight. But animation importing was a little bit of a pain, since for each animation you have to save it to a separate file, otherwise you can't edit it, which means you can't add these functions. But this is not very readable. I wish the editor was a little bit nicer about this, but if you zoom in really far, you can see that there's script events during this animation, which is not playing because reasons, I guess. There we go. So this indicate right here is the little sound effect you hear right before an attack swings, so that you know when to parry. This swipe is the swish sound effect, and the way that damage is dealt is that it's just toggling on a boolean to say this should be dealing damage now, so that when it passes through the player knows if it's supposed to actually be a hit or not. And since it's just using a damage area, it won't deal damage every frame it's active. It'll just deal damage once when it enters the collision. There are problems with doing it like that, but it was the simplest way to do this for a jam. The player, on the other hand, does not do it like that. Let me find the actual player. Camera always just goes off to somewhere random. So, for the attack animation, let's zoom out so I can find the event. It is a lot simpler. So here is the swipe sound effect for the player, the script event, and then the damage event. You don't need any sort of fancy toggle on hit detection. It doesn't even have a collider because it will never miss. The enemies can't dodge, the enemies can't parry, so. Check my notes. Alright. So, as you may have noticed, there's a lot of sound effects and little particles that go off in the combat scene. And the way that I decided to handle this was very hacky. Let me find the globals.gd. So, coming from Unity, I was missing play one shot. And so all this does is it creates an audio stream player 3D on demand, adds it to the scene, sets the bus, and a couple other things. Randomizes the pitch a little bit just so it's a little bit more interesting, plays it, and then just waits until it's finished before deleting itself. This technically works, but it's not good. I should probably, well, it's for a jam, so it doesn't really matter. But for something real, you should probably pool this, so you're not just creating a bunch of objects. Even though I know Godot does a little bit of node pooling or something in the background, I don't really remember. But very similar for the particles. Just creates a node and then sets a timer for the duration of the duration that's requested. Since the particles don't have a duration per se, it's a bunch of different systems that are stacked on top of each other. The annoying part, though, is that in web, this seems to still freeze a little bit when doing this for the first time. And you think, well, it's probably loading the resource, right? So I added a preload. So all of these SFX and VFX are preloaded. Nope, still freezes. So surely it's the shader, right? So I just spun off a little instance of this on the start scene, so that of all the particle effects on the start scene, so we could compile those and make sure that's gotten out of the way before the gameplay scene. And that helped a little bit, but it didn't help all the way, and I'm not really sure why. It still ended up freezing for a little bit. So if anyone knows, I don't know, let me know. I don't know a lot about how Godot does resource streaming. As for the visual style, it is well, very stylized because I am not very good at art. And so the more stylized I can make it, the more I can get away with just calling it part of the style, essentially. So, you probably recognize this type of shader if you've ever done any sort of shader work yourself. But all this is 2 noise textures, scroll speed, cutoff. All it's doing is sampling each of these noise textures at a different rate. Magic numbers, who cares? It's a gem game. Samples these 2 masks, essentially, and averages them out, and then just discards anything below the cutoff. That's why it looks kind of ripply. It's not just like a scrolling texture. It made a cool effect, and it actually worked really well for this hair, mostly because I stretched the UVs super far while modeling this. This hair is actually made up of 2 different meshes just pasted all over the place. But in the material, like for the floor, for example, I would say 2 different noise textures, but they're identical. These are the same exact noise texture. They're just sampled at different speeds, so that's why it ends up, making this interesting sort of ripply pattern. But I think it turned out pretty well. I added these white things in the background just for a little bit of contrast. I wasn't really sure what to do with the background, because as soon as I added fog, it sort of made the floor look kind of weird. So I just disabled all that and let the skybox act as contrast. So I'm pretty happy with this entry overall. It didn't do super well. It did okay. But some people did not like the use of the limitation, I guess. But what can you do? It was a very fun jam. Yeah, that's about it. Hopefully I can do more of these and, I don't know, make some stuff for fun. That's about it.